Welcome, everyone, and we'd like to call the meeting of the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners to order. Tonight, we're going to be led in prayer by Commissioner Turner, then Commissioner Jernigan on our pledge to the flag. First, before he prays, he's going to read a resolution that we prepared in honor of these three gentlemen you see over on these pictures here with these flags in the corner. So he'll tell you a little bit more about that.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Commissioners and citizens. So as the Mayor just touched on, we actually have a partnership with the 3rd Brigade Combat Team of the 101st Airborne Division. And these three gentlemen that are to the left of me lost their lives in the service of our country recently, and they're all under 30 years old. Now, I'm not saying that because, you know, if they're over 30, it matters less, but they're young men that gave their lives for the country and do not have the opportunity anymore to come back here, and they leave a family, and I'm going to kind of talk about that. So it's a proclamation that's been put together that we need to honor them, obviously, and if you'll just bear with me here and let me read this, because this is certainly one of those proclamations. You're happy to honor them, but you hate the reason why you're having to do it. So I'm going to read that right now, that Rutherford County, Tennessee proclamation for recognizing the soldiers of the Rutherford County Partnership Brigade killed in action during Operation Freedom Sentinel. Whereas the 3rd Brigade Combat Team of the 101st Airborne Division is a partnership organization of Rutherford County, and as such is an extension of our community. And whereas Sergeant Eric M. Houck, 25, of Baltimore, Maryland, married to his wife Samantha and father of 2 children, was killed in action on June 10, 2017 in the Pekka Valley in the Nangarhar Province, Afghanistan. And whereas Sergeant William M. Bays, 29, of Barstow, California, married to his wife Jasmine and father of 3 children, was killed in action on June 10, 2017 in the Pekka Valley in Nangarhar Province, Afghanistan. And whereas Corporal Dylan C. Baldridge, 22, of Youngsville, North Carolina, was killed in action on June 10, 2017 in the Pekka Valley in Nangarhar Province, Afghanistan. And whereas all of our community mourns the loss of these soldiers that represent the best our community and our nation has to offer, and whose service reflects the values of duty, selfless service, and personal courage. Now therefore, Ernest G. Burgess, Mayor of Rutherford County, will hereby sign this proclamation to recognize these 3 soldiers of the Rutherford County Partnership Brigade killed in action during Operation Freedom Sentinel, and encourage our citizens to recognize the service and sacrifice of the men and women of our armed forces and their families, and honor and remember in prayer these 3 soldiers and their families. We hereby proclaim the flag of the Rutherford County Historic Courthouse will be flown at half-staff in honor of the fallen members of the 3rd Brigade Combat Team of the 101st Airborne Division from Friday, June 16, 2017 through Friday, June 23, 2017 to signify our eternal gratitude. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion for this approval.
Several others. All of you in favor of that, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Now, if you'll bow your heads with me in a moment of prayer. Heavenly Father, we are thankful for this opportunity that we're able to approach you today with a very solemn attitude and heartfelt remembrance and gratitude for not only these 3 individuals who were killed in action, but for those that they leave behind, their families who are going to be impacted by this for years to come. We're thankful for what they've done for us. We're grateful for what they've done for us. And we ask for your eternal protection, not only around their families, but for those men and women who are still fighting overseas, protecting us, protecting our country, Lord. We are thankful for what they mean to us, and we're thankful for the characteristics and everything that they embody that make us proud to be Americans. I ask tonight that we honor them in the right way by handling our business in a way that's appropriate, that not only honors our community and honors these soldiers and their families, but most importantly honors you by how we treat each other in each one of our words, our actions, and our deeds. I ask this in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen. I asked the mayor just for a minute if I could speak on something that has really been bothering me, commissioners and citizens, and I think everybody in our county and our country need to be concerned about that. We have got to have some personal responsibility on how we treat those who disagree with us. When we see gunmen opening fire on people because they do not agree with what those people stand for, or we see blatant attacks verbally, physically, whatever the case may be, that doesn't represent the best of us, and that doesn't represent the best of America. And I just want to say that I'm proud to serve on a commissioned body and serve with people who can disagree honorably, admirably, work through problems, have discussions like adults. And I just want to remind everyone that not everybody feels the same way with the same amount of hate in our heart. There's got to be ways that we can address those situations better, more productively, because I think our citizens in the country and these three gentlemen that died for our country deserve better. So I want, as we move forward into the remaining portion of our meeting and as we move forward through the next coming months, the next coming year, remember that we're not just representing ourselves and our families. We're representing those who have gone on before us and held these positions. We're representing those people who elected us, and we need to do that in a way that honors them and just do the right thing. It really shouldn't be that difficult, commissioners, for us to be able to disagree in a way that's respectful. And unfortunately, I think we're losing a lot of that, and I think accountability starts with each one of us, to make sure that we look in the mirror and we challenge ourselves to do the right thing and do what the Bible tells us, to be respectful and honor someone the same way that you would want to be treated. I appreciate your time, Mayor. Thank you for letting me speak to that.
Thank you. All right, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Schaefer? Here. Commissioner Piercy? Here. Commissioner Jordan? Here. Commissioner P? Here. Commissioner Cook? Here. Commissioner Jernigan? Here. Commissioner Cush? Present. Commissioner Reed? Here. Commissioner Gurley? Here. Commissioner Turner? Here. Commissioner Allen? Here. Commissioner Stevens? Here. Commissioner Johnson? Here. Commissioner Baum? Here. Commissioner Nipper? Here. Commissioner Dodd? Here. Commissioner Phillips? Commissioner McAdoo? Here. Commissioner Ely? Here. Commissioner Gooch? Here. And Commissioner Sereno?
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Looks like we have a 100% attendance tonight. That is good. All right. We have presented with you a copy of the minutes of the last meeting. Commissioner Phillips, what's your findings?
Thank you, Mayor Burgess. I reviewed those minutes. I find them in order and move that we dispense with the reading and that they be approved.
Right. And we have a second from Commissioner Nipper. Anyone have any corrections or additions? If not, then all of you in favor of that, please say aye. Aye. All right. Thank you very much. Next, we have a resolution of recognition for 2017 TSSAA Track State Championships. Commissioner McAdoo.
Thank you. With Commissioner, I'm going to have Ricky Fields, the track coach, and other members of the track team to come forward. As they are coming forward, this resolution of recognition involves a combination of 4 of our high schools in the Rutherford County competing at the state track meet, and we had 4 participants to win first place. And what makes it so good is that all our schools can come together and compete on the state level. As all you know, they compete all the time against each other, but it makes me feel good when they can come together. Resolution of recognition. Whereas the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners would like to recognize the following high school students for placing first in their respective events in the TSSAA Spring Fling Track State Championship held at MTSU in May 2017. Amani Udamani, girls triple jump, Oakland High School. Donovan Whitmore, boys 200 meters, Siegel High School. Emilio Martin, boys high jump, Blackman High School. And Michael Struggs, boys 100 meter, Riverdale High School, Junior. Whereas this is a dedication and commitment by these young people, along with long hours of practice and a positive mental attitude to get to this point. And whereas we express our sincere recognition to Imani, Donovan, Amelia, and Michael and their families, for without their encouragement, none of this would have been possible. And also congratulations to their teachers, coaches, and principals at the various high schools. And therefore, be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that we extend this resolution of recognition to Imani, Donovan, Emilio, and Michael for winning a state championship in their respective events, and we wish them much success in all their future endeavors. And I so move.
And Commissioner Phillip Dodd and many, many others. Okay, everyone, all of you in favor of that, please say aye. Aye. And congratulations to each of you.
I'm going to ask Coach Ricky Fields if anyone would like to say anything. I see one got here a little late, but he's coming on up. Let's give him a hand. And the reason I bring up Ricky Fields' name because this is not a first for him. Ever since I've known him, which has been several years, I won't tell you how many years, but he's been at Riverdale, and we have a director that was once over our school that will say exactly the words I say about Ricky Fields. He have done a lot for our youth in Rutherford County, not only in the schools, but extra activities which keep them involved, and also as Christian, he do not pass up students. He handles students 24/7, and I'm just proud to know this young man. Ricky.
Thank you, Commissioner McInerney and all the commissioners. Thank you, Mayor Burgess, for this night and all the people that's represented here for these young people. I guess on behalf of Coach Kastner and Coach Al Evans, his assistants here tonight, and these fine young men that's standing before us, it's a great honor that they represent Murfreesboro real well at the Spring Fling. You know, it was a great testament of the work they have put in and long hours they put in. If you ever been at the track meet, and you would have seen some glorious things from these young men representing our county against all the other cities in the state of Tennessee. So again, we thank you for this honor, and we thank you for awarding our young men and women for this honor tonight, and they will go on and make Murfreesboro proud. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, now is our time for public comments, and we only have one person that wishes to speak, and we've sort of encouraged him to speak tonight. So Trey King has been successful in getting a very significant grant for his program, and we'd like for him to sort of give you a little bit of an update about that.
Well, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Just want to let you know, I think through the commission and through our Public Safety Committee and our Budget Committee, back in December of last year, or November, I came to you asking you for the ability to be able to apply for a $1 million grant from the federal government to enhance and expand our current recovery court operations, specifically targeting our co-occurring population, those with mental health and substance abuse disorders. We were successful in obtaining that. We found out last week that we were awarded $1 million over the next 3 years for that very purpose. So with that $1 million, we'll get, roughly the county will receive $242,000 a year. MTSU will receive $60,000 a year to do the data analysis and the research, and $60,000 will go to the co-op and the guidance center for mental medications. So it was a great success. It was something that I didn't really plan on being able to obtain. We always hope and pray, but we were probably one of 10 or 15 in the nation to get this grant. So I think that speaks volumes to what we're doing here in the community, and I appreciate y'all allowing me the ability to be able to do it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Trey, for that bit of good news and a lot of hard work with him and Reba Carlton and others that helped put all of that application together. All right, so next, elections and confirmations, Commissioner Turner.
Thank you, Mayor, and congratulations, Trey. We love you getting $1 million grants. That's great. Good for our community. Commissioners, on your iPad, you'll find that there's a list of notaries that need to be approved. And Mr. Chairman, I make a motion for their approval.
Second, Commissioner Cook. Any additions that anyone has? All right, all of you in favor of that, then please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Steering Committee would like to announce a vacancy on the Community Care Board for Ms. Faye Elam. Steering would also like to announce 3 vacancies on the Industrial Development Board and the Health and Education and Facilities Board for Rob Lyons, Jimmy Evans, and David Waldron. Steering would like to fill 3 vacancies on the Linebaugh Library Board. Steering would like to nominate Commissioner Joyce Ely, Marcy Lehman, and Jamie Burris. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion for their approval.
And second, Commissioner Phillips and Mr. Sereno. All right, any other nominations? If not, all of you in favor of that recommendation, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed to that? Thank you.
Steering also has to fill a vacancy on the Stones River Regional Library Board. Steering would like to nominate Dr. Frank Lambert. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion for his approval.
Okay, and a second from, who's going to do that? Commissioner Phillips again. All right. All of you in favor of that, then please say aye.
Aye.
One opposed? All right, thank you. That's unanimous as well. Now we have a resolution to approve our consent agenda. Commissioner Phillips.
Thank you, Mayor Burgess. I've also reviewed that consent agenda. It took a little while. I find all of them appropriate to put on the consent agenda, and barring any commissioner wishing to remove item, I move that we adopt the consent agenda.
And a second, Commissioner Jordan. Does anyone wish to remove any of those items that we have listed there? There's only 24, so you've got a good choice of items there. All right, there being no one that wishes to remove any of those, we will vote on that consent agenda for all of them. All of you in favor of that, hold on here. We have a motion, a second. We have to record the votes on this, so please cast your votes.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the votes, please.
20 yes, 1 abstain, motion passes.
Okay. Next, we do not have any unfinished business, and it's not quite 6:30. We've got about 11 minutes, Commissioner Jordan, to start on our Budget, Finance, and Investment Committee report.
Good evening. Gotta love that consent agenda. Got item L1A, a resolution. Be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the general fund be amended as follows. County buildings, increased expenditures, engineering services, $46,000. Building improvement, $110,000. Decrease unassigned fund balance, $156,000. This is the additional funds to go and do the HVA system work in the courthouse we've been working on for some time and getting it done in this year's budget. And under County Mayor, we got increased expenditures, site development, $29,700, and decreased unassigned fund balance, $29,700. That's for some paving work at the Lascassas Fire Hall, which is county property, and we've got a short window of opportunity to do that in the next couple of weeks while the Highway Department is ready to get starting on next year's budget. And so that's what that's for. That came through budget last night, was discussed at Public Safety, but since we're on such a short time frame, Commissioner Schaefer was approved to send it on the budget, and that passed unanimously at budget last night. Resolved this 15th day of June 2017. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Second from Mr. Reed. Any questions or discussion? If not, then please cast your votes.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Please record the votes.
21 yes, motion passes.
That's item L1B, resolution. Be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that the solid waste fund be amended as follows. Post-closure care costs, increase expenditures, contract for post-closure care, $10,000. Decrease assigned fund balance, $10,000. This is for leachate removal. Resolved this 15th day of June, 2017. Mr. Chairman, I so move.
And a second, Commissioner Piercy. Any further discussion? If not, then please cast your votes.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the votes, please.
21 yes, motion passes.
Item L1C, a resolution. I asked Harry Gill if he wanted to come over and read this, but he said no, he would decline. Whereas the town of Smyrna is proposing to construct a memorial in honor of Marine Captain Jeff Coos, who lost his life in the U.S. Navy Blue Angels practice flight accident on June 2nd, 2016 in Smyrna, Tennessee. And whereas the memorial will be located in Smyrna's Lee Victory Park and include a retired Blue Angel FA-18C-25MC Hornet aircraft on permanent loan from the National Aviation Museum. And whereas the memorial project had an estimated cost of $1 million, and the town of Smyrna is requesting Rutherford County to match the town's contribution of $100,000. Therefore, be it resolved by the Rutherford County Board of Commissioners that funding in the amount of $100,000 be committed as a contribution to the town of Smyrna for construction of the Captain Jeff Coos USMC Memorial in Smyrna, Tennessee, from development tax reserves in the 2017-18 budget. Resolved this 15th day of June, 2017. Mr. Mayor, I so move.
Commissioner Allen, second that. Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was probably the only one that did not vote in the two committees this went through that voted for this resolution. I abstained because I had to do some more thinking about it, because I knew 5 airmen that had very similar situations as Captain Coos did, and with the same results. And you know, I had to go back through myself and examine myself. And I meet with a veterans group. And some of those guys flew in the F-4 Phantom, the A-4 Skyhawk, the F-14 Tomcat, and the F-15E, which are fighters a little bit older than the Hornet, as most of us were anyhow. But looking at it, they came up and they were very positive for Captain Coos, because they said, look, the service he did, just like these other airmen have done for their country. They served in Afghanistan, and he was proud enough and good enough to be a Blue Angel. That the community work that they do for the country is really fabulous. And also, he averted homes, buildings, etc. And I know that's a hard thing to do for a pilot to divert the aircraft at the last minute away from things. You still got some control there that you can do that. So he knew that it was going to be, whether he could have gotten out or not, he probably saved a lot of lives. So I want to say now that I'm 100% for this memorial, and I'm going to support it when it comes through. Get off my chest, I guess, is the way to put it.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. Any other discussion? If not, all of you then please cast your votes.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Record the votes, please.
21 yes, motion passes.
Thank you very much. So if I read slowly here, before 6:30, we do not have a report from the Health and Education Committee. There is no report from the Property Management Committee, nor the Public Safety Committee, nor Public Works and Planning Committee, nor the Steering Legislative and Governmental Committee. So we don't have any other standing committee reports tonight. It's not quite 6:30, but if we can indulge and ask Mr. Demosi to take at least 3 minutes of his introduction, then we can start the actual public hearing at 6:30. So, Mr. Demosi, you may take all you want to on introducing and giving us more information about rezoning request 17-A012 from Benchmark Communities located along Shelbyville Pike. The existing zoning is planned unit development. Proposed request is a PUD amendment for single-family area revision, and the size of request is on a site of approximately 114 acres. Mr. Demosi, please give us your summary of this project.
Yes, Mayor Burgess, thank you, and good evening, Commission members and Mayor. If you want, for the first couple minutes, I can do shadow puppets or voice over tones or something. I'm a man of few, but some talent, so anyway. We'll just go ahead and dive right in, and we'll see where we get. This first application, and it's kind of unusual that all 3 applications that we're going to be looking at are pretty much right in the same area of each other along Shelbyville Pike. That wasn't intentional by any means, just kind of the way that it happened to work out. But just to give you a little bit of background on Davenport Station, which is the subject of really the first 2 public hearings tonight. Davenport Station was originally approved as a planned residential development back in August of 2007. The original development was to consist of 353 single-family dwellings, 132 townhome dwellings, and also 10 commercial lots. There have been several amendments that have been made to the development since that time. Basically, what those amendments have done, they've removed the townhome elements, they've lowered the number of single-family lots, and in addition, the development was amended back in August of 2007. Wait a minute, excuse me a second. I might be looking at the wrong. Yeah, sorry about that. I was actually on the second one, not the first one. But the history is pretty much the same, so what I'm telling you now, I'm not going to bother to repeat. Going back to the original first part of Davenport Station, the part under the first public hearing, a preliminary plat was approved by the Planning Commission back in September of 2007, and the final plat was, for sections 1 and 2, was approved by the Planning Commission soon after in July of 2008. Those plats were extended several times, especially during the recession. Finally, after some time, a notice to proceed for Section 1 was issued by the Planning and Engineering Department back in January of this year. This development was sold to new owners back in 2013. They submitted an amendment at that point to remove the 92 townhome units, as I said something about earlier, and replace them with single-family units. So that actually reduced the number of residential units from 492 down to 448 if you added both the townhome and the single-family elements together. The current owner is proposing to adjust the southern portion of the single-family detached lots. That's what's before you today. There is a copy of the amended pattern book on your iPads as well for your review. The new plan will provide for 436 single-family detached residential units, which is a further reduction in the total number of residential units. This adjustment was due to the increasing amount of reserve soil in the step system, which will serve this with the sanitary sewer needs. Again, it's a decrease total of 12 lots from the 2013 approval. Minimum lot size would be 5,500 square feet. That was another change. House sizes are a minimum of 1,700 square feet and be constructed with a minimum of 35% brick, stone, cement board, siding, or masonry product. And again, the pattern book is on your iPads. Consistent with our regulations in the zoning ordinance, the applicant did hold a neighborhood meeting on March 6th of this year, which was fairly well attended. Most of the discussion centered upon approved portions of Davenport Station that have recently begun construction regarding turn lanes and those type issues. There was also discussion on traffic safety, the size of the lots, drainage onto adjacent properties, and possible additional access points to open space for emergency vehicles and lighting concerns. As I stated, there were several comments made during that neighborhood meeting as well as the public hearing on April the 10th before the Planning Commission regarding the traffic in the area, particularly at the intersection of what will be Davenport Drive, the street that's under construction right now as part of the first sections of Davenport Station and Shelbyville Pike. An updated traffic study has been completed by the applicant and submitted for staff's review. The study recommended turn lane improvements, both southbound deceleration and a northbound turn lane at both that new intersection at Davenport Drive, which have been incorporated into the construction drawings for that development that's ongoing, and the pattern book has been updated to reflect that as well. Regarding the intersection at Rucker Road, there's already language in the plan development, and that has not changed, regarding the addition of turn lanes, possible eventual signalization of that as well when the numbers warrant it, as far as that's concerned. There was still some concerns regarding the proposed lots, the size of them, as well as discussion on price points in the subdivision that the Planning Commission thought might accelerate the demand on county infrastructure, particularly schools. After some discussion on these items, the Planning Commission did move to recommend approval of the request by a vote of 8 for and 2 against. Hopefully I've gone over the amount of time that I needed to go over, so with that I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Demosi regarding this applicant? All right, Mr. Demosi, so please stand by then, and we will declare the public hearing open for rezoning request 17-A012. If there's anyone here that wishes to speak for or against this request, now is your opportunity. Come forward, give us your name and address, and make your comments.
Mayor, Rob Mulchin, SEC, live at 3912 Roland Road. On behalf of, here tonight on behalf of Benchmark Communities to represent this project, as Doug alluded to, we are just looking to rezone a portion of the overall Davenport Station PUD that was originally approved in 2007. We're looking at reducing the lot sizes. What Benchmark is trying to do with this revision is to allow for a second price point of home sales. The original approved plan only had one lot size available to the whole community, so you're looking at almost 400 homes of one style. What they're wanting to do with this lower portion, the southern portion of the project, is to provide a smaller lot product for a secondary price point. That price point is going to be roughly in the 250 plus range, and the other price point will be around that 300 plus range for the larger lots. So this was the main reason we were coming back with a revision to this. Plus, we're also kind of doing a minor land swap. There was originally a little piece of the residential portion that protruded into the step fields with CUD's step area. We're just doing a little bit of land swap on that too, to kind of clean that up and provide more reserve soils to go along with the property itself on that side. As Doug talked about, we're doing about 35% of the homes will be masonry product, and that's your minimum, so anything above and beyond 35% on that as well. Open space, we're actually incorporating more open space with this plan as well. There'll be a centralized open space that'll be coming in the next section, section 3, that'll be coming through on approval with that. That'll be including our pool, fire pits, walking trail and such. That'll be putting the main amenity piece to the overall project itself on that side. As Doug talked about, there was some discussion in regards to the turn lanes. We did have an updated traffic study done. We're looking at incorporating all those things that were recommended in the traffic study. That includes the turn lanes at Rucker Road in regards to dedicated lanes in the median, and also lanes coming off the roadway into the development, but also incorporating the signalization of that intersection as warranted by the state and by the county engineer in regards to putting those in, and also putting in dedicated right and left-hand turn lanes at the Davenport Drive intersection, which is the main intersection that we're constructing right now at section 1 on that side. So I think that pretty much wraps up what I have to present to you all tonight. If you have any questions, I'll be present for the rest of the night. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone else wish to speak for or against the proposal?
My name is Gail McFarland. I live at 250 Hemlock Drive, just north of where this is going in. I bought my house 6 years ago when I didn't realize this was going in, although obviously it was already in the works. He makes it sound really nice. Green space, 2 different price points. He makes it sound really nice. What he doesn't tell you is that it changes the character of that neighborhood immensely. Right now there are 24 houses on 2 streets just north of Davenport Station. We already contend with getting onto and off of Shelbyville Highway, coming down Shelbyville Highway through that road cut and having to turn right while people are barreling down on us. I did not hear that the traffic study recommended a turn lane there at Oak Meadow, which is concerning because you're going to add 1,000 more cars or more coming in and out right there. It's very disturbing to those of us in the neighborhood. The neighborhood is a quiet place. We have large lots and small houses, and you're building big houses on little lots. The character of the place is going to change tremendously, and the neighborhood is very concerned. We clearly can't stop most of this. Would that I were here 10 years ago, but I wasn't. I lived in West Tennessee at the time. The number of houses are going to increase the light, which is going to decrease the number of stars in the sky, which is already happening from the north, thanks to Murfreesboro City. There are foxes, there are skunks, there are groundhogs, there are turtles. They've been tearing out trees, they've been burning them, they've been filling our neighborhood with smoke for weeks, so that I was happy to go to school to work, so that I could get away from where my throat stung and my eyes teared up. I don't have asthma. I don't know what people in the neighborhood who have breathing problems did during those several weeks. I can't imagine that burning all those trees is best practices. As a teacher, we're always told to use best practices. Those can't possibly be best practices. I don't know what else to tell you other than I think this is crazy. I have some neighbors here who may have more to say that are more pertinent to your interests. I have no idea, but there you go. That's my take on this.
All right, thank you. Who else would like to speak? Please come forward and give us your name and address.
Timothy Williamson, 243 Hemlock Drive. When I heard that the lot size was adjusted to 5,500 square feet, it doesn't ring a bell, except that when you recognize that the city of Murfreesboro is fighting to allow their lot sizes to be decreased to 6,000 square feet. This does not even meet an urban design for housing. And you can be told, yeah, there's a step system back there, but that step system does not accommodate the number of cars that would need to be in that area. Right now, when Empty Bottle has a big to-do, guess where those overflow cars go? All the way down Oak Meadows, all the way into Hemlock Drive. There's no parking on the street. When we've called to complain, do you know what I was told? That the county has no noise ordinance that is enforceable. I was shocked. And yet here, where will the cars go? Where will the cars go when someone wants to have a graduation party? There is not enough road space. If you measure, I calculated the 2.4 cars on average that each residence has in Rutherford County. You can't fit 2.4 cars per 400 houses in that area physically and be able to negotiate a bus through there. Will the kids be loading the buses on 231? I've got pictures in my phone that I can't turn off onto Oak Meadows because there's a semi blocking the road across Oak Meadows. That semi is leaving Empty Bottle, going on an unapproved road and cutting across there, trying to take a left-hand turn while cars are backing up there. I was told in an earlier planning meeting, use the shoulder, use the shoulder. I almost killed someone using the shoulder because they were using that same shoulder to walk. It shook me for days. But speaking of shaking, my garage wall has more than 20 cracks in it. Every place that wall takes the bulk of the blasting. I know my house is not alone. I know there's someone else here who has discovered cracks all over the place in their house. I don't know who's supposed to be doing the monitoring there. The blasts, when they go off, resemble to what I would think is a jumbo jet crashing. I'm generally not one that scares easily, but I ducked in my own yard because I thought something was collapsing from the house or something there. Later, I found the cracks in there. But that goes back to the size of the lots. The other issue is the egress into the neighborhood. I was told that one of those new roads would be the construction entrance. Well, if you go down there and look at the guardrails from Oak Meadows south, there's a whole new roadway right there. They turn into Oak Meadows and they run south on the south side of the guardrails, and they happen to run north. Do you know why? Oak Meadows is the closest intersection to Murfreesboro. Why would they travel south to head north? And yet, this is not one of the roads that's being considered for lane improvements. I do have a question. Was Oak Meadows covered in that traffic survey? And what was the thought on that?
But go ahead and make your comments,
Okay.
and then we'll let him respond.
I just have a question as to if the traffic flow seems to indicate that there's a need for turn lanes at two new roads that aren't there yet, and this road is further north in the same subdivision, where is that traffic disappearing to in that place? And if you look at 231 South from the city all the way out, with the exception of Volunteer Road, every other intersection has either a light or turn lanes. Most have both. And I don't want to be left out in that corridor there. The issues of construction, I'm sure, will be with us for a while. I understand that we're going to have another session here about further changes to the PUD. How many changes are made? I would be happy to go back to the 2007 approval and say, let it stand. That one seemed to work. There wasn't a whole neighborhood cry out on that. But if this one gets approved, how many more bites will you give them on the same apple and say, well, this is just a little bit more of a change, this is a little bit more of a change? None of the things that are being proposed tonight are improvements from the earlier approval. I don't see one. If we're looking to add more traffic to the county, if we're looking to add more population to the county, who gets to pay for the extra schools? Who gets to pay for the extra police? Who gets to pay for the extra services that the county comes to offer? We all do. And if we keep shrinking those sizes and letting the developers take all the incentives there and more that come with property ownership, but there's nothing given back as a positive flow. If I could be promised that there would not be any cars allowed to park on the street, I would scratch my head in that area because I don't know how it could happen. But how can you have a sidewalk, not block the sidewalk, have such a short driveway with such a short setback, be able to manipulate all those areas in there, and still be able to get through that community in a safe and eye-appealing manner?
All right, thank you. Who else wishes to speak? Please come forward.
Hi there, my name is Tammy Cuthbert. I live on 263 Hemlock Drive. As you see, I have two little girls. And safety is always number one with me, always has. And it just increased when I had children. Church Street, if you mention Church Street to anybody, I don't care who it is, you say you live off of Church Street, first thing they say, that is the worst traffic I've ever seen. That's worse as Nashville. That's so horrible. Has anybody ever heard that before? Has anybody ever been on Church Street before? It's awful, awful. And I've got 2 babies riding in my car. And these babies are my life. And it is scary pulling off of that road. There is a, I'm not sure the technical name, but something from the electric company. It's like this big metal box. And when you go to turn and you're trying to slow down and you're off on the side and you hit that rumble strip and you're going over, these girls know what a rumble strip is because we have to hit it every time. And you hit that. If you're not careful, you can fly off and hit that big metal box. That would not be fun. Traffic is crazy enough. I cannot imagine with how many X amount of people are going to be going in there. You add to that. There's going to be husbands, wives, teenagers driving to school, new drivers. There are so many people who are not used to that. They've lived out in the county. They've lived in the city. Church Street has crazy traffic without anything developing. And then as far as the burning, the smoke, the baby birds, I spoke to a wildlife specialist and she said that if it was an American eagle, it'd be against the law for them to burn at the time they burned. That is when all the babies are being born, all the rabbits, all the birds. You know what? I don't know about y'all, but I have babies and they're special to me. I don't see any difference in a bird and a rabbit and everything else. I'm sure they love their babies too. And then to add to more of that, you have all of the explosions going on. Okay, it is messing up our house. My little girls asked me last night, Mommy, is our house gonna fall apart? Why did they ask me that? Well, if you can take a look at our ceiling, you'll see all kinds of cracks. I've got pictures. I've got pictures right now. I'd be happy to pass around to anybody who'd love to see them. And they're like, why is that falling down? I thought it was some kind of paint chipping down. That's my ceiling falling down. Then I go into my bathroom, and my ceiling to where my wall is, it's coming apart. You can see in it. That's not very safe. Once again, I'm all about safety. I want my children safe. That's why I bought my home. That's why I do not live on a small lot, because I want my girls to be able to go outside. When they step outside, they're not stepping out onto a main road. Turning lane, definitely. Should not be burning baby birds, baby rabbits. There's all kinds besides deer, coyote, you name it, they're out there. That's part of nature. And when you have trees, it was so bad. My girls asked me, they were plugging their little noses and saying, Mommy, please, can we please just go in? Our neighborhood, everybody's outside. If the sun is out, you better believe you're going to see everybody out. But lately, you don't see people. And when they were burning all that, all you could see was smoke. I called the police department, and they transferred me to the fire department. There were huge, I mean, as big as a house. They were burn piles, 4 burn piles at one time that I counted at night, burning. That's next to my home. I live there. My children live there. My husband lives there. My neighbors live there, and I love my neighbors. I don't want them to burn down in the middle of the night because someone's not watching what they're doing. And the road is absolutely horrible. And to have that many people and that many homes and that many drivers and that many more cars, then you got to add in people are riding their bikes. We ride bikes. I'm sure somebody's going to be riding a bike. They're going to need that sidewalk. Somebody is going to need that little lane that we have to pull over and hurry up and slam on our brake and whip it on in. Somebody's going to need that lane. There's got to be somewhere to turn. There's got to be somehow, some way to protect our homes that we currently live in. And if you're adding all those people in those tiny spaces, where is everyone going to go? How do we protect our homes from something that we can't prevent it? So what do we do in that case? We're left in limbo. We're left in other people's hands. We put money into our home. We put our heart into our home. We build and put things into our home to make it better. And it takes just a pop and our home is cracking. Every room in our house has some kind of crack in the ceiling, in the wall. I don't feel safe. What is one day, is it just going to fall on my children? I mean, it just started, people. It just started. And how many blasts do they have to do? Are you done with blasting? No. Is blasting over with? No? I'm sure there's more to come. And just last night I took some pictures, and this morning, that quick, it's already changed. I have another crack in my wall in my bedroom, and they didn't even blast today as far as I know. Things have to settle. Rain, it drops it more. So the house is going to change even more. I don't know. I want to be able to live in my house with it in one piece. I don't want to have to call somebody just because somebody else may be building the house, but I don't want mine falling apart because of it. I spend enough money. And I would appreciate it in my family, and I know I can speak for everyone in my neighborhood, if there was somewhere to turn. It should already been done, much less now. It should have already been thought of and done. Too many people get killed on that road. Too many. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Who else would like to speak? Please come forward and give us your name and address.
.243 Hemlock, Colleen Williamson. We've lived in our home just short of 12 years, and for 11 of those years, my husband and I would go back and forth in the car as we would approach the house. Is it okay? I don't know. Are we allowed to get on the shoulder? Are we not allowed to be on the shoulder? The trucks are behind. They're pushing. They're pushing. When Tammy talks about trying to get off the road, and it sounds like we're trying to learn to be race car drivers, you have to. The cars coming down that hill are ready to be out of Murfreesboro. They are ready to hit the road. They don't care. And there's very rarely anybody there to keep it under check. So they just go. They go, 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 and we're at the same place that they're going. We are having to slow down and stop. So when we look in our mirror and we see one of those trucks and they are coming at us, you have got to get out of their way. And if the current proposal is that we don't get a turn lane, I was so pleased when I heard somebody at one of the meetings say, that's legal, it's okay, you've got to get over. Of course you've got to get over there. So we thought for a good week, we've now heard somebody official say, you've got to get over. You've got to get over. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get over. It's dark. Somebody's pushing us from behind. And my husband goes to pull over where we believe we've just been told. And there's a man walking where he believes he should be on the road. And I'd love to know, if I hit him, would anybody here have a recollection of having told me, you need to get over, get into the shoulder? I imagine no, that nobody would be there at my trial for killing the guy. It is remarkable to me that a study could come out that would not recommend a turn lane there. Now, last time we were here, we had a couple commissioners who were on different sides of this. We had one commissioner, I'm not sure they were commissioners, I believe they were both commissioners. One was saying, that lives in the area, was saying, yes, we really need that. And another commissioner, who I imagine he has not been in the position of needing to turn there, said, well, we would have to put a turn lane everywhere if we were going to put one there. And I thought about that a lot. Yeah, that's true. Maybe you'd have to put one more places. But you know what? Maybe you need to put one more places. If you want to have houses in the density that is more than the city, then you're playing with city rules. And if you go around the city, you will find lots and lots of turn lanes in places that you go, why on earth would they spend the extra money for a turn lane here? Well, I can tell you, I have a house in Kensington in the city, they have a turn lane, just because they want to keep cars moving. For us, it's not just about keeping cars moving, it's about saving the people's lives that live in that community, and you want to add 400 more houses. That's a whole lot of... I know growth's coming. I know there's no way we can stop it. Apparently, we've been found by the world. Everybody wants to be here. But I think you've been elected to come here to make sure we do that safely, that make sure that we do that in a reasonable, studied way. And if someone has studied this out and come to the conclusion that that lane does not need a turn lane, they need to come back and relook at it. They need you to stand behind us and say, it's not safe. Come out and try it. Come down that thing, drive down it, do it at different times of the day, and see if you think we need a turn lane. I really, really hope you will. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak for or against this request? Now, Mr. DeMosi, I think the second speaker asked a question in specific about the traffic study. Do you want to respond to that particular question?
Thank you. The traffic study recommended turn lane improvements at both Rucker Road and also the new Davenport Drive. It did not recommend anything at this time at Oak Meadow because the warrants weren't there for it. Now, that doesn't mean that we'll never see turn lanes at Oak Meadow. As time progresses, the master plan does show a connection to Oak Meadow from the Davenport Station subdivision. At that time, when we see the preliminary plan come in for that phase of the development and the plans and plats and whatnot, we will want to see a revision to the traffic study to see what the warrants will be at that point, and then another determination can be made. So we're not closing the door on it by any means, just the warrants based on the traffic study that were done. Currently, it does not meet the warrants for a turn lane. That's all the study said.
Mr. Gurley.
Couple of questions for Mr. DeMosi. What is the total home count difference between 07 and the current proposal?
The total count, the original count, when it was done in 07, was about, let's see, that would be about 485, if my math is right. That was reduced, sorry, 492. 492, it was reduced in 2013 to 448, and with this particular amendment, they're reducing it by another 12, so 436. So you got to remember, they took out all the townhomes and whatnot, so they did replace the townhomes with single-family elements, so it wasn't a one-to-one swap, but they are looking at a reduction based on what was approved originally back in 2007.
Second question is, do you have any idea what the threshold is in terms of numbers of traffic count to warrant a turn lane?
As far as the actual numbers, it's not just traffic counts. They also look at vertical and horizontal alignment and things like that. It's not just the count. So, I mean, that's a part of it, yes, but there's more that goes into it than that, and I'm not an engineer, nor am I the son of an engineer, so I couldn't give you any more exact than that, unfortunately.
Just to clarify in my mind, as far as noise, I know with blasting, I recently had an incident at my house where a subdivision being built a half mile away from me. It's in the town of Smyrna, but the blasting actually shook my house. Some people, a few people may have seen my house, but it's log. It's put together, it's very rigid, and for my house to shake, physically shake, takes quite a bit of action, and it was also quite a bit of noise. I'm a half mile away. It got my attention. I filed a complaint with the state, who I understand regulates that, because I was told by the town of Smyrna they have no ordinance in terms of blasting or anything like that.
Right, and that's the same for the county. That's all state regulated.
Are we considering anything along that line?
Not that I'm aware of, no, sir. It's all handled through the state.
Also, on the smoke, I know I've seen a lot of developments where the foliage and so on has been mulched and turned into mulch instead of burnt and emitting smoke. Have we considered anything along that line in terms of a requirement to reduce the air pollution?
We have not at this point. I mean, any options, of course, are out there. Of course, anytime they do any burning, they have to make sure they have their proper permits and everything through the fire chief. You know, there's regulations behind that as well.
All right, thank you, Mr. DeMosi. There's no one else wishes to speak now. Are you going to give us new information, sir, or we're not going to go over the same information? Okay, we're going to give you just another moment, okay?
I'm just thinking that if burning is approved by the fire marshal, I've never known a fire that is allowed unattended. And these fires that are burning are unattended. And recently we've had quite a bit of rain, but not when they were starting. And additionally, with the cracking and the shaking in our area, there's a large number of sinkholes and the ground underneath all of Murfreesboro. There are caves to be known. Has a study been done right now the construction that they're doing for the fill lines and everything is on the farthest end of the property. They're only going to be moving closer with more damage to the houses. What is, I guess homeowners need to know what it is that they need to do to file a claim or make the developers aware of the damage that's going on.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, then, that being the case, we're going to declare the public hearing closed. And is there a motion concerning this request, rezoning number 17-A012? Is there a motion? It's in your district, Commissioner Jernigan. On another street, and I don't know the name of that street. Are you suggesting that street is in an adjacent development? Is that correct, Mr. DeMosi? What's the name of the street? Oak Meadows is the name of the street? Or the... Okay. So your motion is to approve this request as defined through the Planning Commission with an additional requirement that a turn lane be placed on Oak Haven Street, Oak Meadow Street. Is that correct, Mr. Jernigan? Yes. All right, is there a second to that motion? Second. Mr. P. Now discussion. All right, no one is rising for discussion, so we're going to take a roll call vote. Mr. Dodd wishes to speak.
May I?
Yes, sir.
Can the county demand TDOT build a turn lane, or can we do a turn lane on a state project without their?
No, we cannot. That has to be done through the state, and based on a traffic study that was done, a turn lane is currently not warranted for that intersection. That's not to say in the future it won't be, but right now, the subdivision, Davenport Station, does not connect into Oak Meadow. At some point in the future, it will. At that point, we'd want to revisit the traffic study. But to answer your question, can we make them put a turn lane onto a state road without TDOT approval? No, we cannot.
Mr. Nipper.
Mr. Denoz, when was the study done for turn lane, the traffic study through there? Was it 07 when this, or 09? Or?
Well, the original one was back in 07. Now, they just did an update on it within the last 2 or 3 months. Yes, sir.
So the state is saying that there's not enough traffic out there, right?
I'm sorry, it wasn't a state study. It was a traffic engineering study that was done. Of course, now they'll work with the state as far as those kind of things go, but their study that they did, a private engineering firm did the study, they found that the current levels at Oak Meadow did not warrant a turn lane. But again, we would revisit that in the future when those connections were made.
Okay, so it was a private engineering firm hired by the contractor, is that correct?
Yes.
So, I mean, I travel out there nearly every day, basically every day, morning and back in the afternoons. And I can tell you just from my own study that a turn lane is needed. It is very hazardous, especially turning on Rucker Road. You know, traffic can back up 10, 12 cars in the afternoon trying to get onto Rucker Road. And the other side of the road that development is being built on, it's like some of these citizens said, once people hit that hill going towards Cheville, it's like they put the foot down and they go. And if you're trying to get off or whatever, it is very dangerous. So I'm just kind of questioning the validity of the traffic study myself. So.
Well, and like I said earlier when I was talking with Commissioner Gurley, I'm not personally a traffic engineer. However, the people that do these studies are professionals, and they stamp these studies with their stamp, so it's really their professional integrity on the line. So I would hope that these are accurate representations of what's going on out there. I would like to echo just one concern I have as staff just regarding the discussion is the turn lane that being discussed right now. Now, when they did the study, of course, they already recommended the study or the turn lanes, excuse me, for Rucker Road. That was always part of it. That wasn't really up for discussion. The traffic study came back and said, yes, this new Davenport Drive that they're working on right now also did warrant did warrant a turn lane, both right and left turn lanes, into the development, which the developer has added in to their particular application. Although the application we're looking at is only for the southern portion. Okay, the traffic study came back and said yes, this other one is also warranted, so they went ahead and just updated their construction drawings. That's not really what is up for discussion tonight. Neither is that intersection with Oak Meadows Drive. I understand the concerns, I do, but at the same time, you'd be requiring something, if that's approved, that is not part of this development, at least not yet. In the future, again, when this connection is made and that it's revisited at that time, at that point, we'd get another crack at the traffic study and look and say, based on these new conditions, is this a warranted study? Is this a warranted turn lane? And I think at that point would be a more appropriate time.
Mr. P wants to go next, and then we can come back to some of you that may have another comment. Commissioner P.
Well, all I'm pointing out here is the motion that I second basically saying you'll put this turn lane in or you won't have this subdivision.
Mr. Gurley, were you wishing to speak again?
I'd just like to make a comment. What is the issue with getting ahead of the curve on the turn lane? I mean, why do we have to come back and do it when we have a problem? I mean, that seems to be the whole thing with the development. I mean, why don't we get ahead of the curve? If you're saying some point in time we're going to have a turn lane there. And so I really don't see any problem with getting a little bit ahead of the curve, because personally, back a few years back when I was working for the county, I've tried running emergency traffic down 231. It's impossible without killing someone. And so I really think that, there's really no problem with having a little bit of getting ahead of the curve instead of behind the curve.
Commissioner Allen and then Commissioner Phillips and Mr. Schaefer.
I've been on the Planning Commission for a long time, and Commissioner Gurley, I completely agree with you. I'm going to borrow one of Josh's favorite sayings, which is arbitrary and capricious. We do not want to be arbitrary and capricious. And so as we had many plans coming before us, there were times that we would listen to anecdotal information based on neighbor feedback, which I'm not saying it's inaccurate. I'm sure their experience is absolutely their experience. But the problem is we would listen to some and ask for a turn lane, and we wouldn't listen to others and would not ask for a turn lane. So we had to come up with some definitive measure that qualified when is a turn lane needed, because we didn't feel qualified as planning commissioners to make that decision solely. So that was when we turned to Doug for potential solutions. And so we wrote the policy in such a way that we could request a traffic study really anytime we wanted to. Anytime anytime we suspected there was a traffic issue, we could ask for a traffic study. And so that was kind of our solution to this problem. And so that's what we're dealing with now. I don't always agree with the traffic study, but just like Doug, I don't have an engineering degree. I also don't live out there. But I need a definitive something to point to that's data that we can qualify that says, we're going to ask for it this time, we're not going to ask for it that time. So that's the reason that we're in the situation that we're in.
And Mr. Phillips, let me just ask one little question to follow up with her, if you don't mind. Doug, if this were to be approved, will the state of Tennessee allow a turn lane to be placed on Highway 231 without a traffic study from a reputable professional firm that says it's warranted?
I don't believe they would. Now, that being said, the state has taken a position of wanting to work more with the communities as far as their traffic needs are concerned. But if it's just clearly not warranted, I think that'd be a harder sell, personally.
Commissioner Phillips.
Thank you, Mayor Burgess. I've been on the Planning Commission for well over 20 years, and the changes that I've seen in our community in those 20 years are mind-boggling. I grew up in Laverne, where there probably wasn't just a few hundred people in Laverne, but things have changed. And not only have things changed, but things are going to continue to change. The Chamber of Commerce said back in the late 70s and early 80s that we would have somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 to 250,000 people in a 20-year period of time. Being a native, being a country boy, I didn't believe them. Not only did those things occur, but they were exceeded. The Chamber of Commerce is now telling us that we're going to have 650 to 700,000 people over the next 20 to 25 years. If you think traffic is bad now, wait 10 years, 15 years, and 20 years. One of the issues that we have is how are we going to get people from point A to point B, and where's all this development going to go? These PUDs are the best use of the land that we have left and be able to maintain some green spaces as far as farms and other things. These PUDs, and I'm not saying this is the best one I've ever seen, but what I am saying is that the rules and regulations that we put together, the comprehensive plan that we put together, allows this type of development to occur. And what we're struggling with is when we begin to do these things out in the county, and by the way, Murfreesboro is landlocked, they can't do a lot. So a lot of the industrial, commercial, and residential developments that's going to be happening in the future will happen in the unincorporated areas of the county. So it's not anything that we can run away from. It's something that we have to face. My concern right now is that there is a development that's going to be placed on a road that can better handle it than some road that can't. Try coming in off of 96 from Las Casas, those of you that live in Las Casas in the morning. How long does it take you to get into Murfreesboro? Church Street and 231 is not an exception. It's happening almost in every ingress and egress to this county, almost every major artery. And these people are exactly right. Is it safe? I can't answer those questions. But these people that are coming are going to have to go somewhere. And this development made an exception to offer smaller houses that more people could afford that are coming in. So it's a multi-purpose development that offers large homes and small homes, and it's kind of a self-contained area. Once again, I'm not saying that this is the best thing in the world. I'm not even sure that the motion, and Joshua, if you could help me, I'm not even sure that the motion is legal. We're talking about adding something to this development that's not included in that development. And that's the way I understand it. And I don't even think can we do that. Maybe we can, and maybe it's appropriate, and I'll support anything that this commission decides to do. But I just want to make sure that we can legally vote to put something in that's not part of the request. So if you could kind of answer those, and I'd just like to say I'm sorry for rattling on, but 231 is not an exception. You guys that live out in Las Casas or out toward Milton or out toward Eagleville, it's that way coming into the city every day, morning and afternoon, and it gets worse every month. And it's going to continue to get that way unless we can do something long-term to plan for the traffic that's coming. We're not doing that. And I don't know how to do it because it's going to cost a ton of money to do it. So, Josh, if you could give me a little help there.
Right. So I think that the motion itself can be made. I don't think there's anything illegal about making the motion. However, it does occur to me, as Commissioner P. pointed out a few minutes ago, as a practical matter, I don't know if this developer can actually attain this. He'll have to go to TDOT and get permission to be able to put in a turn lane at this time, and that may not be possible. So it may be a condition that is currently impossible, and as a result, he would have no approval at all, as Commissioner P. pointed out. So I don't know if you've got ongoing problems there with the traffic study, if it might not be smart to defer it and see if you can work through those issues or something like that to come up with a more comprehensive way to address those problems.
Is this on this point?
It is. No, it is. Josh, I have a question as a sort of a follow-up. If folks will look at their pattern book on page 4, and I just confirmed with Doug, just to make sure that I want to make sure that the motion is appropriate for what we've advertised. The section that's yellow is the section that's under consideration tonight, and that's where we're talking about reducing the number of the number of lots. The section that's orange and purple to the north, which is where Oak Meadows is not under consideration tonight. And so I just want to clarify that question to him and say, can we even address a part of the plan that isn't part of the requests? And so, based on Doug's understanding, we cannot.
Yeah,
what is your understanding?
Yeah, let me ask Doug a question here. So the application that was actually filed, was it an application to amend, and then it was specific only to the section in yellow?
Well,
not an amendment to the PUD as a whole?
I mean, the plan development. It did not include the orange. This was the original CUP originally approved. This other PUD is everything else around it.
Right.
But just basically, just orange is excluded from that.
Okay. Well, I'm still going to answer the question the way I did a minute ago. I think if the question is, can you make the motion, I think you can make a motion on just about anything you want to make a motion on. I do think that you're making a motion here that is likely an impossibility, either because it is not the section in question or because they don't have the ability to get the turn lane in because no one has consulted TDOT and gotten approval. So you're creating a scenario where the applicant probably cannot meet the conditions that are being set down here. If that is challenged, then we'll get back to Commissioner Allen's phrasing of my favorite phrase, which is, it is certainly better for us to be relying on objective information in the file, and that is the purpose of the traffic study that's performed by a professional.
Mr. Schaefer, excuse me, he was next, and then Mr. Jordan. Sorry about that.
Well, I wasn't going to say this part, but I will, and that's that this sounds kind of like a burial plot that went before Boza a couple of years ago, what we're talking about out in on Beale Road. But here or there on that, if we don't approve this, what they asked for tonight, it reverts back to the where it was, which is 12, same thing, except 12 more houses. So from that standpoint. Plus, the other thing I was going to mention, I have an area that's in my district that was approved for 5,000 square foot lots many years ago, because you can get a lot more on 5,000 square foot lots. And 5,000 square foot lots, the parking, people are all over the yards that they have, what little yards, and if you park in the street, you're susceptible to fines, because the ordinance in the city is no parking in the street, even though they got one. And that's going to happen out here. And I tell you, it looks pretty trashy if you go by and when you see it, because there's mud everywhere after rains, and that's what will happen to this subdivision.
Mr. Jordan.
I wasn't going to weigh in on this, but I guess I will. We beat this to death in planning. We talked about this turn lane in depth through a couple of different meetings. This turn lane is not part of what we're looking at tonight. This is the adjacent section and all. And I'll offer a recommendation. I know one time years ago we had an argument about a turn lane, which we're repeating history. We're doing what we did 7 or 8 years ago. We're up here. If 4 or 5 people show up on a turn lane, also we say, let's have a turn lane. If nobody shows up, we don't ask for a turn lane. We thought we fixed that. We thought we put, I'm repeating what Rhonda said, we thought we put a mechanism in place where we'd have rules, we'd do this, and this turn lane will come in due time, I feel like. But in the past, we've done a few where the motion was add a turn lane if allowed by the state. That way, if it's not allowed, these people can move on. Because if this gets turned down, they just build the prior plan, which is 12 more units. This is actually a reduction in units. So in my opinion, it's a good thing. And if you make your motion, Joe Frank, that says if allowed by the state, then we're covered. If the state allows a turn lane, it gets put in. If it doesn't, we move on. Jeff, on every morning about 7:30, it backs up from the VA past Walter Hill School on 231. So the people in the Walter Hill area, we feel the pain too. I think you drive a bus through there some of the time. But we've got to have some consistency here in the way we do things. And Commissioner Jernigan is one of my dear friends, I think the world of him, but I can't support this motion as worded because we're getting off in left field. If we would change the motion and say if allowed, I think that would move on, because all we're going to do is build the subdivision with more lots, with more houses without this. If we do this and the state does not allow the turn lane, probably open ourselves up for a lawsuit, because they're going to spend time trying to figure out if it's allowed and not, and then back up and do this and stuff. But I just hope we try and, if we want to change our rules, let's talk about that. I think we've got pretty good rules, but let's change them. Let's not just try and change it all on the fly right here tonight.
All right, Mr. Jernigan, do you wish to speak? You pick your mic up there.
Yeah, I'll make that motion if it's allowed.
Making the motion, you're changing your motion to approve the request with the addition of a turn lane at Oak Meadow Drive, if allowed by the state of Tennessee. Now we have to get the second person to weigh in on that.
Well, I'm reluctant to do that. However, I will make that second, and I want to speak to that. And I want to speak to consistency. I, too, have been on planning in the past. It was either 8 or 12 years. I forget which it is. But I remember a mini warehouse off of 96. I think it's Laughlin Road, right there at the bridge. And there was a requirement made for a turn lane because of the traffic that would be added for this mini warehouse. However, it's hard to put a turn lane on a bridge unless you got the money for the bridge. Now, the planning director at that time, that was his recommendation. And of course, what that did, that stopped that coal. So if you want to talk about past precedents, and you can look that one up if you want to, Josh. If you want some help doing it, I can help you. And like I said earlier, I understood that this would stop this when I made that second before. But having said that, I'll go along with the commissioner who's in his district. But I want to point out, it seems to me we need to update our traffic study criteria. Because if we know that we're going to come back here in a few months or a year and we're going to have that additional outlet on this road, It looks to me like a traffic engineer would be able to calculate that with that road open right now. And you can tell this developer, hey, from what our criteria tell us, when you open this subdivision into this road, you're going to have a turn lane. So why don't you just plan on doing it now?
Any other discussion? We've had a healthy discussion. All right, there's no more discussion then. We do have a revised motion and a second that you do understand that the motion requires a turn lane if it's allowed and acceptable by the TDOT, State of Tennessee. You got that down, Mr. Spence, properly? Please cast your votes.
Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
Hold on just a moment. Mr. Jernigan, you haven't voted according to my screen. Now everyone is voting. Now, Madam Clerk.
Okay. Anyone that did not vote and wishes to vote, or anyone who would like to change your vote, you may do so now.
All right, please record the votes.
19 yes, 2 no, motion passes.
All right. We're ready for a rezoning request 17-A013, again from Benchmark Communities, Shelbyville Pike. The existing zoning is a residential medium density with a previously approved conditional use permit for a planned development, and the proposed zoning is for commercial services on about 18.5 acres. So, Mr. Demosi, I believe you've covered some of this before. Let's see how you want to proceed this time. Go right ahead.
Yes, Mayor Burgess, thank you. As far as the history of this particular property, it's identical to what I discussed prior to the public hearing of the last application, so I'm not going to go just in depth into a lot of that. I will say that when this development was first amended back in August of 2007, specific commercial uses were intentionally omitted from the CUP, the conditional use permit, in order to allow the residents in the area to have an opportunity to voice any concerns they may have. I included a copy of the Planning Commission's minutes from that meeting. It was July 9th back in 2007. When the applicant came back to staff recently regarding the commercial areas, we recommended at that point that it would probably be appropriate, if they wanted to use those original commercial lots for their purposes, to request one of the conventional commercial zoning classifications that we now have in our zoning ordinance, be it commercial neighborhood, commercial services, or commercial general, as opposed to seeking any kind of an amendment to the plan development for those lots. Those lots were still regulated under a pre-existing conditional use permit, but since we don't do conditional use permits anymore, this was just a cleaner type situation, as staff felt. The applicant's request, they originally asked for commercial general, which is the most permissive of the three classifications we have. Commercial neighborhoods kind of on the low end, if you will. Commercial generals on the high end. Commercial services is kind of in the middle, is how that works out. I've also attached a diagram with your agenda packets. It gives you an overview of the different uses that are allowed either by right or by special exception in each of those three commercial zones. Just so you know, site plans are required for any proposed development on these properties. Access to these lots would be from Shelbyville Pike. There's also the possibility of access of some of these streets within the Davenport Station PUD, as shown in their rezoning plan that we just discussed. We have encouraged the applicant to explore the possibility of shared access or cross-access easements between these lots to help limit the number of access points to Shelbyville Pike. Depending on the proposed use, we would have the ability, again, as has been discussed tonight, to require additional traffic studies as the site plans came in to determine whether or not additional traffic improvements should be made in the area. Buffering requirements, of course, would also be part of this. After the Planning Commission's public hearing, most of those comments that we heard dealt with the proposed uses just curious about the proposed uses in those commercial zones. We had some concerns about drainage onto adjacent property, which of course is something that we look very closely at the site plan review stage. Our engineering team is very diligent in that regard. And also, there was one person that spoke about using an existing easement on adjacent property to access his property, to access it illegally. But after discussion and consideration of the different uses allowed in the different commercial zones, ultimately, the Planning Commission did make a recommendation to go with commercial services, again, kind of the middle-of-the-road commercial zoning, as opposed to the commercial general, which the applicant had originally requested. Something else I did want to bring to your attention, one of the parcels that's identified as parcel A on the map in your agenda packets was already zoned commercial services, so there was no reason to advertise that against it's already zoned that way. So that's why the request is a little bit different, and the resolution is a little different than what was originally asked for, because that property was already zoned. Also, you'll notice in your site characteristics on your staff report, we had calculated approximately 18.5 acres for this rezoning. After the legal descriptions came in, it was closer to 16, so that's not a big issue, but just wanted to clarify that as well. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. DeMosi? Okay, then we will declare the public hearing for request 17-A013 open for public comment. Who wishes to speak? If there's anyone that wishes to speak, come forward and give us your name and address. And I will request that we do not focus on the turn lane situation. I think we've thoroughly vetted that.
Can I ask a question? Can there be a map put on the screen so we can see what we're looking at?
I don't know whether one could be placed up there or not. Mr. DeMosi?
These are well, this is already zoned commercial, but these are the areas in question.
So all of this is already zoned commercial?
Yes. Actually, those are too, but this is commercial, but these are not. These four are not. They were originally shown to be used in a commercial manner.
Can I have a second? Because this is new information.
Okay, well, you need to be prepared, so you just want a second to review that. Anyone else wish to speak? Wait, just.
The map that I'm looking at on page that's listed as 17A0113, Section A, if I'm understanding correctly, that's the property directly behind Empty Bottle. And the mailing that was sent to us indicated that there were going to be houses to the right side of Oak Meadow and to the right side of Fieldcrest. Okay.
Thank you. Well, I kind of need my staff report. You can borrow it for a minute. I'm okay, but I'll need it back. Thank you. The property is zoned commercial, as he stated. That property, if you're looking at your map, that area all along I can't read that, Fieldcrest Drive and Oak Meadows. It is also being controlled by a conditional use permit that was originally approved. Those are still going to be houses there, even though the property is zoned commercial. We just zoned that entire area commercial when we did the comprehensive rezoning back in 2013. I've already had discussions with the applicants about this. They desire to keep those as single-family homes in that area. That's being controlled by the conditional use permit. The same thing is being controlled, that's controlling that development that's currently occurring. Even though that particular development, those lot sizes that they're building do not meet the current minimum zoning because they're under a previously approved conditional use permit, the same thing holds true for those houses along that commercial area. They will still be houses, and that is the proposal still. And I confirmed that with the applicant just within the last day or so. So, yeah, they're not planning on putting commercial along where those houses are being shown on that planned development. That still is binding for them.
How can we be assured that it is binding?
Well, because I'm telling you that is. Right.
So there will definitely be houses on Oak Meadow and Fieldcrest.
That is what their proposal and their existing plan development call for. I'm sorry?
Adjacent to where there's a neighborhood now.
Correct.
And the commercial lots you are going to talk about are actually on 231.
That is correct. Right, the way it's shown.
All right, now the public hearing is open. Now, we've had a little bit of a dialogue here. Come forward and make your statements, please.
May we ask some questions?
Well,
I'll just throw the questions out.
make your comments, and then if
Okay.
there are questions contained therein, we'll see how we respond.
The map that we saw before, which gives us a little bit of concern, indicated that the PUD, which encompassed all this area, was now fewer houses in a total parcel. And I was trying to make sense of it. Well, of course, when you're taking now what appears to me to be a much larger area for commercial property, and you've shrunk the houses down, you really have I'm spellbound, I guess. It seems to me like not even a bait and switch. It's just a switch and a switch and a switch. You approved the PUD changes already for the residential. Now they're asking you to look at these other changes here. Is there, how many times will you give them a bite at the same apple before the whole thing goes out? I just, if we are looking for a change here, any commercial approvals, I'm asking be commercial neighborhood, or defer until there is someone that comes with a business plan and a model so that we have a chance to actually see what's being proposed for the area. If you don't change it at this point, it's my understanding that they will have to come back for a designation at that point, and that allows for more public feedback and a little bit more information, and that does allow us a chance to preserve our neighborhoods.
All right, thank you. Who else wishes to speak? Now is your opportunity.
My name is Kara Hooper, and I live at 250 Hemlock. I'm part of the neighborhood. I have mostly questions. I don't know what general is versus what
I
is
can't
it?
hear you, please.
General services and what?
Commercial services?
Yeah, I don't know what the most permissive and
commercial
this being the
neighborhood,
middle of the
and
road,
then-
I don't know what that means. So I guess I have some questions. One would be, it sounds like we would have an opportunity to comment of when the construction begins and for the planning part of it. If that could be clarified, yes or no, that would be helpful. And then in considering, again, I don't know what falls in this, but I just ask you to consider the fact that right now we have a quarry and we have a landfill and we have a biker bar in the neighborhood. And I don't think that the knitting shop is going to go in there because of the neighborhood. There's a automotive place across the street. So I want to consider Tammy's kids. I want to consider the other kids in the neighborhood. And so in considering what is allowed there, the other businesses in the area are not necessarily ones that will help the neighborhood. So if you can consider that in the zoning thing, what sort of other like businesses will go in there and affect the existing folks. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you.
I hope you'll pardon us. This one we really didn't understand. There was no zoning sign in front of those commercial this time. So we were not on board. We read it 2 days ago. When we did the research, the community did the research on what was going on for the houses, many of us came and spoke with Doug repeatedly, got a lot of good information from him so that we were educated. We're not as educated about this because we didn't know it was till 2 days ago that we should be educated. And we run business, and there's just was no way to come down and be more educated. So forgive us for that, but I hope you won't punish us for that. I can just ask if we're going to make this a big neighborhood, it seems reasonable that if we're going to be a big, big neighborhood, we should have a neighborhood designation, and that we should try to move away from biker bars and that kind of thing. Because now while some of us moved there before the biker bar and we're not particularly happy with the biker bar, these people will be coming, we won't know, they won't know what's going to be out there, and they will have families, and to suddenly have more biker bars or liquor stores or just isn't the kind of neighborhood if it's going to be a neighborhood. Thank you.
All right, does anyone else wish to speak? Let me ask Mr. Demosi one question before you speak. Mr. Demosi, this has been to the Planning Commission. How many meetings at the Planning Commission was this discussed, and was public notice given before the Planning Commission meetings?
Yes, public notice was given. As I think we use the same mail-out list, quite frankly. I'd have to double check. But I'd have to look in the file to see what went out. But, I mean, it's the same properties we're talking about. We did put the public notice out. The signs were on the property for people to call. Now, I didn't put the signs out here. I don't know if one actually got on Oak Meadow or not, but I know there were at least one or two other signs along Shelbyville Pike.
All right, thank you. All right, sir, you may again tell us your name and address and
Rob
your
Molson,
comments.
SCC, 3912 Roland Road. I just want to kind of add a point of clarification. And this project, Davenport, has gone on since 2007. Many people have come before this board, and I mean, the Planning Commission and this commission, with changes to this over the years. And more or less what our conversation with Doug was to help clarify what we can do from a traditional zoning classifications for what the zoning ordinance allows for at this point in time, was to come back and just go ahead and get a general classification put on this, which would give my applicant the opportunity to know what uses he can go out and try to look for clientele to garner these properties. So this is really the main thing, is just really getting this thing cleaned up. And it also gives you all and staff the understanding of what can and can't be used on those lots at this point in time when it's rezoned to this commercial services. So looking at the ordinance, it tells you exactly what you can and can't do with this property. So this is really what, working with Doug on this and getting this cleaned up, is more or less to, instead of there being this unknown out there of what can be put on these lots because of the old zoning classification the old zoning ordinance that goes with this old PUD and PRD didn't have a classification list into it. This is giving you all a guarantee as to what uses can and can't be done on this property at this point in time if you go ahead and move forward with approving this. This area in regards to what's being zoned commercial CS at this point in time, that's by Oak Meadows, my client is definitely staying on board with keeping the residential along Oak Meadows and leading up around the corner over there, more or less creating a buffer residentially between what could or could not go on those commercial lots that's closest to them on that side. So, that's kind of what they're originally. That donut hole in the middle there north of Oak Meadows was originally townhomes, and we pulled that back in the original approval. Rechanges of that were back in 2007 when they changed that again from townhomes to a commercial element at that point in time. So this is just more or less trying to give everybody a guaranteed assurance as to what can and can't be used on these properties at this point in time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is anyone else that wishes to speak? Okay, then we're going to declare the public hearing closed with respect to request 17-A013. Is there a motion concerning this request for this proposed zoning to commercial services? Commissioner Jernigan.
Make a motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Second, Commissioner Phillips. Discussion. No discussion being noted here. All of you in favor then please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, let it record reflect that it was unanimous. Rezoning request 17A014 on behalf of Mr. Stephen Grace, located at 3752 Shelbyville Pike. Existing zoning is residential medium density. Proposed zoning, again, is for commercial services on a site of about 3 acres. Mr. Demosi.
Yes, Mayor Burgess, thank you. This request before you tonight is just to the north, a little ways of the properties we were just discussing, and it comes as a result of a zoning enforcement action on the property. The applicant moved in a couple of portable structures and covered a section of the property in gravel in order to sell plants, flowers, and other like material in order to operate an open-air market. The applicant was informed that this type of activity was not allowed in a residential zone. The applicant was under the impression that since they were selling plants and flowers, that they were exempt from local zoning requirements under an agricultural exemption, which we explained to them at that point that the property itself is not being used in an agricultural manner, so therefore that exemption did not apply in this particular situation. Access to this property would continue to be from Shelbyville Pike. Any development on the property will require an engineered site plan to be submitted to staff, showing all parking and access being designed consistent with county regulations, paved parking, those type of things, buffering, and also meeting our performance standards. There were some safety concerns with ingress and egress that were voiced during that public hearing. Most of the discussion concerned the access easements on the property to adjacent tracks. Following the public hearing, there was some discussion on potential future uses and the possibility of considering a planned development for the property, but after further discussion, the Planning Commission did recommend approval. They did so by a 6-4 margin. I will say that a lot of the issues regarding the access easements to adjacent properties, the zoning is not going to affect whether or not those easements are still in place, and whenever site plans are submitted as something that we'll need clarification on, but as far as the zoning is concerned, it shouldn't have any effect on that. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Demosi? All right then, thank you, Mr. Demosi. So the public hearing for rezoning request 17-8014 is now open for comments. Would anyone like to speak regarding this request? No one is rising to come forward, so the public hearing is closed. Mr. Jernigan.
Make a motion to approve as recommended by the planning director.
All right, do we have a second? Second, Commissioner Phillips. Oh, and Mrs. Cook, excuse me. All right, further discussion? There being none, we will take a voice vote. All of you in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? That was unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Demosi. Well, okay, we thought we were going to get out early. That takes us all the way down to any other business. And any other business, we do have a needed executive session with our county attorney regarding our lawsuit that's been in play for a substantial time now regarding our probation processes. So that being the case, we're going to go into executive session, and we have to ask everyone that's not a commissioner or Mr. McCreary or me to leave the room. You will be allowed to come back after we have had our executive session, and so we'll take a few-minute break for you if you'd like to at this moment. Take a 5-minute break. We're ready, whenever you are. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we are back in session, and we'll ask our county attorney just to give us a brief report on the executive session that we've had regarding our probation lawsuit. Mr. McCreary.
Right, we've just come out of executive session on the case of Rodriguez versus PCC in Rutherford County. During that executive session, I provided you information and an update on the status of that litigation, and you asked questions that I responded to. There's been no deliberation at this point, and now we're back in open session for any appropriate action that you might wish to take based on that information provided.
Do we have anyone that wishes to make a motion? Commissioner Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make a motion to authorize the county mayor to finalize the negotiations and settlement of the Rodriguez versus PCC and Rutherford County lawsuit, including entry into any and all settlement agreements, consent decrees, and other documents that may be necessary or appropriate to finalize the case, settle, and terminate the case pursuant to the information that was shared with us from legal counsel during our executive session.
Second, Commissioner Turner, and others, many others, I believe. Any other discussion? All right, all of you in favor of that then, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Well, that was a resounding unanimous. Thank you very much. Is there any other business that anyone wishes to bring up tonight, or any other announcements? Commissioner P.
Well, perhaps the other commissioner needs to make that one. We were going to talk about the Blackman barbecue.
Mr. Gooch, would you like to?
Yes, I will announce the Blackman Barbecue, June 23rd, Friday evening, from 5 to 8 at the Grove. They ask that you bring some lawn chairs. The adult tickets are $12, children are $6. And there's going to be a special treat at 6 o'clock. They're going to have some special clogging. Commissioner Ely has signed up for that. So come on out and see Miss Ely do some clogging. She'll be wearing a bright orange shirt.
Very good. That'll be worth $12 just to see that now. Oh, anyone else? 23rd, Friday. Any other business or any other announcements? Thank you very, very much for your participation. We are adjourned. Okay, good job, Josh.
Thank you.